welcome to Writer Wednesday, where I talk about all things being a writer and an author while playing Minecraft. And today I thought it would be cool to talk about the writing process, namely my writing process. Not because it's the best writing process or it's the only writing process, but it is the only one I know intimately because it's mine. I have carved out my writing process over the course of writing however many books I've written, like at least 20 by this point. It published, I think, 14, 13 or 14. It's weird that I've lost count, I know. But let's get into it. And I'm slowly making like this little sewer area. I don't really have any big plans for this Minecraft world other than just waste time and have fun wasting time. Which is really, isn't that the point of all video games? Have fun. This is where I was. So the writing process. And there's many ways to write a book, but I have kind of carved out my writing process over the course of, writing so many books. So I know what I need at what stage I need it. And the first step in my writing process is the inspiration phase. And I think that's the same for most writers. The inspiration phase is literally just where I gather all of my ooh, hey, some blocks that didn't despawn when I was here last. The inspiration phase is literally me just gathering all of my inspiration for whatever project it is, whatever I need. There is a zombie somewhere over there. And that inspiration includes mostly like the main character. I need to know who they are and what they want. I need their name also. And I don't know how many other authors are like this. But once I name a character, that is their name until the end of days. I cannot change a character's name once it is set. That's just how my brain operates. And that is one thing that I need before I can move on to the next phase. I also need to know what kind of world I'm in, whether it's like a high fantasy world or it's more of a gas lamp fantasy. All I write is fantasy. I've tried to write contemporary and it just never works out. Ooh, oh, that's not what I wanted. I also need to know who the love interest is, if there is one. And I need a very, very general sense of where the story is going. I don't necessarily need to know exactly where it's going and how and when and why. But a very vague idea is very nice. I am a plotter. I plot. I need to know where my book is going. I need to know where the characters are going, how they're going to get there, what's going to happen to them when they get there, what is their purpose for going where they're going. Opposed to being a plotter, you have pantsers. And that word comes from writing by the seat of your pants. You are pantsing the novel. You don't have an outline, you're just going. And I have tried to be a pantser. It doesn't work. I will get to a certain point and then go, now what? And I can't sit and just write scenes that don't go anywhere. I can't do it. It irritates me. I can't do it. And there's nothing wrong with being a plotter or a pantser. It was whatever works best for you. I, however, am a plotter. Hardcore plotter. And once I have all of that information down, and I feel like I have a story, basically, I move into the dreaded outline phase. And this is literally as it says, you outline. And I haven't always outlined, or I have, it's just I didn't realize that's what I was doing. And here lately, for the last several books that I've done, I have used the, what is it? Save the Cat novel beat sheet. And it's by far my favorite beat sheet, as they call it, that I've found. Because it takes, like, your basic Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and then it breaks them down a little further into very specific story beats that need to happen with the percentage at, like, the percentage point through your novel when that specific beat needs to happen. Like, the midpoint happens at halfway through your novel, 50%. I mean, it can happen at like 45% or 55%, but like around 50% is when you want that midpoint uh, beat to take place. And like things like that, it just makes it a lot easier for me to organize the hot mess express that is the inspiration vomit that I have in whatever Word doc I'm working in, to organize it into a plot form that makes sense, and to make sure that I have all the like the little pieces that I need. And I have rewritten an outline multiple times before I move out of the outline phase. Like this one book that I've got sitting on my computer. It's not really a work in progress anymore, but it kind of is, but it's to the point where I am pretty much kind of done with it. But I rewrote the outline to this haunted library, haunted academia, dark academia book that I was working on. I rewrote the outline more for that book than any other book I've ever done. There's several reasons, mostly because I didn't start out in like a fantasy world. I tried to write a contemporary story and it just didn't stick. So then I tried to add in like this weird portal fantasy kind of thing. And then that was an absolute hot mess, unsalvageable hot mess. So I went back and I took out all the contemporary and just made it this gaslamp fantasy world. Which, as soon as I started to do the outline that way, there was this weird moment of, this is how this novel needs to be. Once I have the outline to where I feel good about it, we move on to the drafting stage. Very similar to the outlining stage, the drafting stage is drafting. It is taking the hot mess that was the outline and just building on all the building blocks that you set out for yourself. The outline is the blueprint that you're working off of, and then the rough draft is just you going through that outline and just making scenes, giving dialogue, just explaining a little bit more in depth about what is happening. And some of the best writing advice that I heard was that when you do a rough draft or even a first draft, don't worry about making the story pretty. You are literally telling yourself the story, trying to make it make sense, make the plot work, have the characters have motivation, and making sure all the pieces are there to make a good story. And the drafting stage takes as long as it takes. I think, like, once I got to the drafting stage, my Dark Academia Gaslight Fantasy did not take that long, because, like, I felt real good about the plot, because I did all that outlining. Versus Thief in the Castle, I did not do a whole lot of outlining, so the drafting process took, I want to say, 9 drafts, which is the most drafts I've ever done of any book. Because there was, oh, when I say hot mess express, I mean it with that book. Like, I think the second and third drafts, oof, they were not clean. They were very messy. Like the magic system rules were just all over the place. And had I outlined, I could have figured all that out beforehand, but I didn't. Because I didn't quite have my writing process solidified. And also, there are a lot of writers who do not outline. They jump right into the first draft or the rough draft, which is fine. If that is how it works for them, that's how it works for them. Every writer is different. Every book is different. For me, drafting is just me going over the story again and again and again and again until I feel good about all the scenes that I have blocked, all the dialogue that I have put in, and eventually, after I get through all of the drafting, I move into the revision stage. Because to me, drafting and revision mean separate things. Drafting is more big picture. You are moving entire chapters around. You're playing with whole scenes. And revision is more narrowed. You're looking at each individual scene to make sure they fit, make sure they have purpose. And like each revision looks a little narrower, it looks a little deeper. Because as you write a book, or as I write a book, this was also something that a more experienced writer told me back when I was just a little baby writer, eons ago, that when you start writing a book, you start real big, and as you work your way down, you work your way to the bottom, like an upside down triangle. And every draft you do, you get a little closer to the finished point. You get closer to that finished product, that finished book. And your first revision is going to focus on your big picture things. The next revision is going to focus on your medium picture things. And then as the more revisions, and drafting works this way too, the more drafts you do, the smaller picture you look at. Until you get to where you have done all the drafting you can do, you've done all the revisions you can do, and you have perfected your manuscript to the best of your ability. You have gone through it and done a very quick, like a little line edit to make sure all of your words have purpose, make sure all of your words mean what you think they mean. And I kind of line edit as I go now. And they say don't do that, but I can't make my brain not do it. If I see a sentence that's like, ooh, that's a bad sentence, I will either flag it for later or I will just fix it right then. But that, you don't have to do that. It's just how my brain works. But then after the revision, and after I have done everything I can do with the project, that is when I deem it ready for an editor. Someone else needs to look at the book. That doesn't mean you have to go through all of those steps and all those phases and all the drafting to get a second pair of eyes. If you want to do a beta reader after your first draft, that is perfectly fine. Like, there's no set science to how to write a book and when to get beta readers. Like, if you need someone else just to look at your manuscript and tell you, yes, this idea is viable, continue, that's fine. Like, there is absolutely nothing wrong with feeling like you need an extra pair of eyes. Most writers feel that way, but most writers also feel terrified of letting anyone else see it. I know I was with my very first manuscript. I didn't want anyone else to see it, especially anyone I knew. Because we put so much of ourselves into a project that it, especially with like your very first book and your first several books, really, it feels like you're putting a piece of your soul on display. And trying to separate yourself from that feeling is very difficult. It's not, difficult's not the word I want to use. Oh, ah! There we go. Okay, sorry, that carving my way out through the water tunnel was taking all of my concentration. Every book that I've done, every project has come about in its own way. Even with me having my writing process pretty much set in stone, like every book kind of has done its own little different thing. Because I know there are authors who don't outline. There are authors who outline their books to a T. There are authors who don't write in order. Because when I go from outline to rough draft, I write the book in the order that it will be in, because that is how it makes sense to me. That is how my brain works. My friend Lisa does not write in order. I have no idea how she can keep all of those scenes straight, but she does somehow. And I've since not really met, there's mostly like social media, but other authors have said yes, that's how they write too. When that's not how my brain works, and I think that is fascinating that other authors can do that, and also how different of a writing process so many authors have. Because I enjoy hearing about like other people's writing process and how they get to like the finished book. I also enjoy plot structure. I'm a nerd for plot structure, which is why I think I prefer Save the Cat over any other plot structure. Because they're essentially the same, okay? Like, there's not one that's far superior than any other. Oh, then I can just, like, have, like, it come up. I like that plan. I like little exits. But I like Save the Cat because it breaks it down into a very manageable outline. But then let's say we have done the drafting, we've done the revision, and we have sent the book to an editor, right? We get the book back. What I like to do is once I get the book back from either beta readers or an editor, I will go through and I will briefly read their response. I will not touch the manuscript. I will read what they've said. Where? Where? I can't see. Okay. So I heard the trident, and my gut instinct was to go get trident, but I don't. I don't think I got one. That's fine. Well, to wrap up Writer Wednesday, some people outline, some people don't. Some people rough draft excessively, some people don't. Some people use beta readers immediately, some people don't. There's no one writing process that works better or worse than any other. And to find your writing process, you really just have to write, start writing, and see what works for you. It's kind of like with writing advice, you soak it in. If it doesn't work for you, toss it out. If it does, keep it. Because there's no one way to write a book. The only, I guess, set in stone rule for writing a book is to uh, write a good book, entertain, don't waste the reader's time. Like I've heard several successful authors give that same advice. Like, don't waste the reader's time. It's been said different ways by different people, but it's the same. It's be entertaining, write a book people want to read. Which is a lot harder than you think it is. I feel like there was something else I was going to say. I had a point. I feel like it had something to do with drafting, but I don't remember what it is. It's fine. It'll hit me as soon as I stop recording. But until next Writer Wednesday. What was I going to say? I had a thought. It was a good thought. It was an intelligent thought. Yeah, I don't know. It's gone. It's fine. Whatever.